So we will study together international relations, है ना? International relations. My name is Priyanshu, and we will be carrying forward the topic which is in GS2, General Studies 2, है ना, of Civil Service main examination. So have you been through the syllabus? Have you been through? So you have to study about the India's neighborhood, about different policies of developing and developed countries, and what is their influence on our policies. You have to study about India's diaspora, international organizations, their mandate, and likewise. So the portion of international relations in your UPSC main syllabus is brief. You need not to go into much detail into the theoretical aspect of the subject. You need to focus more on the application aspect of the discipline. What is the craft of international relations that is essential for a civil servant to learn, and as you become a civil servant, and if you choose foreign service, and even if you go into other services, the understanding of how the international relations work out is very essential. So, but the understanding of the framework is very important. आप लोग बैठ जाइए. Understanding of the framework, it is very important. Now let us start from, can we describe the international events as random or predictable? The events on the international stage, are they random or are they predictable? They are both. Or are they completely random? You can't predict them. They are both. Okay. So elements of continuity and change, both are found in international relations. This is very important to understand. As a discipline, how we understand the changes and continuity on the world platform and how it impacts us, what we do to make such changes so that it is in our favor. Okay, it maximizes our national interest, that we study under international relations. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the framework of international relations. International relations. Going into the subject, the primary question is, can we live alone? Can we live alone? No. Why? Why can't we live alone? Yes? Interdependence. So that is the secondary thing. Okay, we are interdependent for what? Why are we interdependent? For resources. Why do we need resources? For livelihood. Okay, so see, the basic thing is that we have our needs. As human beings, we have biological needs, psychological needs, emotional needs. So we have both material and behavioral needs, emotional needs. We are not self-sufficient. For that, Aristotle said that we are not self-sufficient. That's why we create families, communities, societies, and city-states. What he called city-states. We are not self-sufficient. As individual human beings, we are not self-sufficient. That's why we enter into relationships. We come together as families, and those families are not self-sufficient in themselves. Can a family fulfill all of its needs? क्या एक परिवार अपनी सभी जरूरतों को पूरा कर सकता है? नहीं कर सकता ना. इसलिए हम एक गांव बनाते हैं, समाज बनाते हैं, हम कम्युनिटीज में रहते हैं. वी बिल्ड सोसाइटीज. और क्या एक कम्युनिटी अपने आप में सेल्फ सफिशिएंट होती है? नहीं. फॉर दैट एरिस्टोटल सेड दैट the need of city state emerges, and the city state of Aristotle is what? The modern nation states of today. ठीक है. तो इस तरीके से उन्होंने कहा कि man is political by nature, and forgive me for his choice of words, क्योंकि पहले के टाइम पे ये जो भी सब्जेक्ट्स में टर्मिनोलॉजीज यूज होती थी और लैंग्वेज, वो मोस्टली मेल कॉनोटेशन होता था उसमें, है ना। तो उन्होंने क्या कहा कि मैन इज बाय नेचर पॉलिटिकल, क्योंकि हमारे नीड्स जो है वो अकेले में फुलफिल नहीं होते. सो फ्रॉम देयर ही वेंट ऑन टू द कंसेप्ट ऑफ सिटी स्टेट. नाउ nations, and in the present times the nation states what we call, and the relation between them, among them, it constitutes the discipline of international relations. ठीक है. International, what does the word signifies? International means among nations, among nations, and relations means the terms of transactions, the terms of transactions, the rules which guide transactions between two entities, terms, the paradigm, that is called relations. So international relation is the discipline of relation among nation states. So was the discipline since the outset it was there, or somebody coined the term international relations? Already there. Who coined the term? It was not already there. It came into prominence as the societies started to develop, they started to become more complex, and from there the concept of international relations came on. So who coined the term international relations? Any one of you? Have you heard of the name Jeremy Bentham? Jeremy Bentham. Who was he? Jeremy Bentham. Jeremy Bentham. So Jeremy Bentham was a UK philosopher, a philosopher from the United Kingdom. So he was the first person who coined the term international relations, and that was the same period. Jeremy Bentham, Jeremy Bentham. Jeremy Bentham was a philosopher. So he was the first person who coined the term international relation. Before that, international relation as a discipline was not conceptualized. And as you see that in the medieval Europe, there was intermittent conflict between warring groups and communities. At that time, please focus on the discussion. Meanwhile, the important points you can note down. You must have the background of the discipline. In that context only you will be able to understand what we will be discussing in the future classes. So in the medieval Europe, due to ongoing conflicts, intermittent wars, there was always instability in society. There was an unstable society, and you have heard, studied in your history, the 30 years war in Europe in the medieval period. 30 years war, which started in 1618 and ended in 1648. That 30 years war, it ended with the peace treaties of Westphalia. Have you heard of the term Westphalian system? Treaty of Westphalia? Treaty of Westphalia. Treaty of Westphalia. We are discussing these concepts as it is important to understand the conceptual framework of the subject. This Treaty of Westphalia, which was signed in 1648, it led to Central Europe, or you can say Europe, as a collection of modern day nation states, which took the shape of the modern day nation states, and from here the relation between modern nation states came up on the global stage with the Peace Treaty of Westphalia in 1648. Now, as you have understood that what international relation means, who coined it, from where the term nation states came up, it is important to understand that what do you mean by a nation. If we are studying international relations, you must be very clear about what do we mean by a nation. राष्ट्र किसे कहते हैं, क्या होता है नेशन? good. Political boundary, or rather more specifically say territorial boundary, geographical boundary. Okay, good. हाँ, उसके अलावा population, good. Sovereignty, good. And very nice. So these four criteria, what you told, were outlined as features of the state in the Montevideo Conference 1933, and that formed the basis of the definition of a nation state. Okay. So if you see from the Western perspective, there was the Montevideo Conference, which outlined the rights and duties of a nation state. Montevideo Conference 1933. So this conference outlined the rights and duties of a nation state, and in order to outline such rights and duties, it defined the qualities, the qualifying properties of any entity to be called as a nation state. So there were four qualifying properties identified by the Montevideo Conference for any entity which would qualify as a nation state, and those four qualities were: first, that there should be a defined territory. There should be a defined territory. Second thing was, there should be a permanent population. There should be permanent population. The third thing was that political entity must be governed by an effective government. So the third qualifying property was effective government. There shouldn't be anarchy. Effective government. And the fourth thing was that it should manage its own affairs. It must be capable of taking its own decisions. That was sovereignty. So it must be capable of taking its decisions, or you can say that it must be a sovereign. It must possess the character of sovereignty. So these were the four qualifying properties which define a modern nation state. So what do you mean by sovereignty? Supreme power. Supreme power of what? Managing their own affairs. Good, very good. So you have proper understanding of the term sovereignty. Sovereignty means supreme authority. The term itself is super annus, means supreme authority to manage their affairs, to take their decisions in the internal or external domain. So sovereignty means there should be no hindrance for the sovereign or the ultimate political authority to make its own decisions. There should be no hindrance. And if you see in the political philosophy, you had philosophers like Austin, who conceptualized sovereignty in the ultimate terms, like there should be literal no superior than the sovereign, no superior. But is that possible in real practical terms? How? What are such kind of works? Okay, no problem, no problem, it's okay. So do you think that in the present day world, a sovereign is restricted or unrestricted? Who is a sovereign? In a modern state, who is the sovereign? Sovereign कौन है जो कि पॉलिटिकल पावर को एक्सरसाइज करता है? कौन है? सिंबॉलिक सेंस में गवर्नमेंट है. अगर हम डेमोक्रेसीज में देखें, सो इन डेमोक्रेसीज द सॉवरेन आर द पीपल. In Indian Constitution, the Indian Constitution, from where it derives its authority and power? People of India. And people of India, through their directly elected representatives and indirectly elected representatives, they exercise their sovereign power. So they delegate their sovereign power to a group of people who constitute the Parliament of India or state assemblies and legislatures in respective states. Okay, so that sovereign power is delegated to a group of people, and on behalf of that sovereign, those group of people who constitute the government, they exercise such power. Okay, so the sovereign power is exercised by the government. Fine. Now, can any government exercise unrestricted, unhindered power in present times? Yes or no? Yes. No. Fine. Hmm. Okay. So you are talking about the moral hindrance. Okay. So there is a moral hindrance. Apart from that, if consider that if someone goes rogue, ठीक है, अगर कोई नेशन वो रोग हो जाए मतलब उसको कोई इंटरनेशनल लॉ से मतलब ना हो, उसको किसी का मतलब कोई मोरल प्रिंसिपल से लेना देना ना हो, so in that case can the nation state take unrestricted decisions? It's not possible. It's not possible, as you have to bear the consequences of your actions. First thing. Second thing is that you have limited technological, military and strategic capabilities, है ना? तो अब जैसे मान लीजिए अभी के टाइम पे you have the Russia Ukraine war going on. Okay, so there might be nations who want that the war should be stopped. Okay, so but can such thinking be implemented in reality? No, क्योंकि हमारे पावर्स के लिमिटेशन है. सो सॉवरेन हैज टू डील both on the internal and the external front, and due to limitations of resources, powers, incapabilities, in real and actual terms there is no sovereign. ठीक है, तो ये एक्सट्रीम सॉवरेनिटी किसी भी नेशन स्टेट के पास नहीं होती है. दूसरी चीज ये है कि विद द एमर्जेंस ऑफ a number of players and actors on the international stage, the sovereignty gets restricted. Who are such players? USA. We are talking in conceptual framework कि नेशन स्टेट्स के अलावा ग्लोबल पॉलिटिक्स में स्टेक होल्डर्स कौन कौन होते हैं? गुड, इंटरनेशनल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस, some kind of good lobby groups, corporate bodies. Yes, international organizations, corporate bodies. Other than you have media houses, journalists, religious groups, okay, NGOs. So all these actors, they constitute the actions going on the global stage. So there is no, in actual sense, any sovereign. But sovereignty, it is an essential feature of, an essential qualifying property of any nation state. And sovereignty, it constitutes on two fronts, internal and external. Internal sovereignty means there should be no hindrance in taking decisions related to the domestic affairs. Okay, and external sovereignty means there should be unqualified or unrestricted ability to take decisions on the global stage. So sovereignty is implemented on two fronts, internal and external. Now, coming to this concept of nation state, do we have something in Indian school of thought? In Indian school of thought, is there a similar notion of sovereignty? In Indian political philosophy, was there any thinker? Is there any book on statecraft? Which one? Good, Arthashastra. So it is a book on political statecraft, and it also defines who is the author of Arthashastra? Kautilya, Chanakya. Okay, Kautilya, Chanakya, Vishnugupta. He is the same person. He was the prime minister of Chandragupta Maurya. Good, Chandragupta Maurya. So Kautilya, he provided two theories, Tang theory and Mandal theory. We are discussing about these concepts and ideas as the first topic which we will study is India and its neighborhood relations. Okay, so you must know that from where the origin of having good relations with your neighbors came from. What are the tactics and what are the skills diplomats must have and governments must exercise to build healthy relations with their neighbors. So Kautilya, he provided theories, Saptang theory and Mandal theory. In Saptang theory, he said that nation state constitutes of 7 components. In Saptang theory, in Saptang theory, As the name itself signifies, Saptang means 7 organs. Saptang theory of Kautilya or Chanakya. According to him, there are 7 components of a nation state. कौन कौन से हैं? हाँ बोलिए. King, first king, he named that Swami or the ruler. In present times, it equates with the government, okay, one who rules. The second was Amatya, Council of Ministers. Amatya or Minister or Council of Minister or Council of Minister. Council of Minister. The third one, Janpad, he called Janpad. Janpad means both people and the land. Means population plus land or territory. This was the third component according to Kautilya. What was the fourth? Treasury, course. That was the fifth one. So the fourth one was Durg or fort. Okay. The fifth one was treasury. He termed that as course. Treasury. Sixth one, you can answer it from your own thinking also. What are the good, Dand or Bal. He called that as Dand or Bal or military. A permanent military constitutes an important component of any nation state. And the last one, and this was very peculiar. The last one was very peculiar. Yes, spies. That comes under military. And the seventh one, yes, good, very good. Seventh one is Mitra or allies. And now you see here the beauty of his thinking, that at that time he considered the text, the book of Arthashastra was written approximately around 250 BC. 250 BC, circa 250. At that time, Chanakya conceptualized that allies are an essential component of any nation state. Any nation state cannot exist without having good relationship with allies. Okay. So at that time, he had the notion of allies or establishing good foreign relations with neighbors as an essential component of the nation state. So this is primarily the basis of Indian thinking, which constitutes our paradigm through which we understand our foreign relations. And in the modern times, as we talked about the Montevideo Conference qualifications, that are the essential qualities or properties of a nation state. Okay. So this was the Saptang theory. Now coming to the Mandal theory of Chanakya. Mandal theory of Chanakya. Questions related to Arthashastra and Kautilya were asked in UPSC prelims last year. Have you been through the question paper prelims last year? One question on Arthashastra was asked. Okay. So this Mandal theory of Chanakya, it provides the basis of relationship with neighbors and other nations. What do you mean by Mandal? Group. Good. Any other meaning? More specific meaning? Mandal means a circle. Okay. Small circle, circle, Vrit. Okay. So Mandal means a circle. In Hindi, Vrit. So he said that any nation, it is surrounded by other nations. Okay. Any nation, due to its geographical extension is surrounded by other nations. And it was a common understanding in those days that अगर मान लीजिए कि किसी भी देश को एक्सपैंड करना है, if any nation has to expand, at what cost it will expand, at whose cost it will expand? By acquiring others. तो किसको एक्वायर करेगा? जो नेबर है उसी को करेगा, है ना? So it was a prevalent understanding that any expansion of a nation can take place only at the cost of acquiring its neighbor land. तो पावर को बढ़ाने का, टू एक्सपेंड ओन पावर, देयर वाज ओनली वन वे टू एक्वायर मोर एंड मोर लैंड, एंड दैट यू कैन डू ओनली बाय एक्सपेंडिंग एट द कॉस्ट ऑफ योर नेबर. अभी के टाइम पे पावर का क्या मतलब होता है? इन प्रेजेंट टाइम पावर इज कंसिडर्ड एज अ गैमट ऑफ रिसोर्सेस, आइडियाज, स्ट्रेंथ, इकोनॉमिक क्लाउड होना चाहिए, फाइनेंशियल होना चाहिए, स्ट्रेटेजिक, स्पेस, मिलिट्री, टेक्नोलॉजिकल, ऑल दीज constitute power. But at that time power only meant how much land do you hold, how much territory do you hold. So Chanakya said that any nation can expand only at the cost of its neighbor. That's why a neighbor is always an enemy. Neighbor is always an enemy, and all these theories and all these concepts have a logical basis, have a philosophical basis. We are dealing with political philosophy of international relations. And why I am discussing this? As in all the continuing classes from today onwards, you must have that framework in your mind, and within that framework you will easily understand the dynamics of international politics. Okay, so what he said, that only at the cost of your neighbor you can expand. So neighbor is a natural enemy, natural enemy. So what about the neighbor's neighbor? Friend. Yes, so it is also born out of common experience that if the neighbor is enemy, then the neighbor's neighbor will be friend, because the neighbor's neighbor will be enemy with each other. Okay, so he said that this forms the basis of relationship in neighborhood. This forms the basis of relationship in neighborhood. And he said that any nation constitutes 4 circles or mandal, 4 circles or mandalas. I am not going into the detail of mandal theory. I just wanted to give you an outlook of what Chanakya thought. So the basis of his theory was that neighbor is an enemy and the neighbor's neighbor is a friend. Okay, so more than 23 years ago from today, there was a person who conceptualized that the nation cannot be stable without having strong friendly relations, and that forms an essential part of the nation itself, which you find missing in the Montevideo Conference qualities. So according to Chanakya, sovereignty is not enough. You must have good relations with other nations at the same time. Now, having talked about that, this focus on nation state centric outlook, this focus on nation state centric outlook towards international relations, it made the nation state as the pivot of everything. It made nation state as the central entity of all that is happening in the international relations. And up to some extent it was true. But with the emergence of trend of globalization, particularly after the 1990s, with more number of actors gaining prominence at the global stage, more number of private entities gaining prominence, more number of non-state actors, more number of criminal groups, terrorist organizations, corporate lobbies, religious bodies, transnational corporations. So together, when they started to influence government decisions, at present day also you can see that India's IT policy, it is influenced by the major IT companies. Government, it holds consultations with such companies and then come out with its policies. Okay, so multi-stakeholder approach has also been adopted at the international stage, from the nation state centric outlook to the multi-actor outlook, multi-actor perspective. Okay, so there has been a transition from nation state centric outlook in international relations, nation state centric outlook to multi-actor outlook or perspective. Are you understanding this? Multi-actor, multi-actor. It's not about actors and actresses in movies. Okay, it's about players, more number of players, stakeholders. So earlier it was considered that nation states, they are the most decisive and the most influential entity in international politics, but nowadays the dynamics has changed, and the paradigm, it involves more number of actors, more number of players, as we discussed now. So the shift has been from the nation state centric model to the multi-actor perspective. Now none of the foreign policy can be devised only on the basis of government to government relationship. क्या केवल सरकार के साथ अच्छे संबंध के आधार पर भारत अपनी नीति बना सकती है? उदाहरण के लिए हम ले लें संयुक्त राष्ट्र अमेरिका को. Can we devise our policy with respect to United States or Canada only on the basis of our relationship with those governments? No. What other factors we need to take into consideration? Other nations also. National interest. Okay, national interest. So there is a different theory on that also. So does our entire foreign policy guided and motivated by our self-interest or national interest? Or is that a moral way to conduct our international politics? So okay, let's not deviate from the topic and get into that debate. Coming back. So government to government relation is not only the basis of finalizing your foreign policy. It involves a number of actors, players. In the recent time, diaspora is also playing a very important part in relation of foreign policy. As you are going to study in diaspora also in your syllabus, we will have a discussion on that. So multiple number of actors or stakeholders have emerged, particularly after the globalization, as more number of exchanges and movement of people is started between nations, continents. With the technological advancement, so the interconnectedness, it increased. As interconnectedness increased, interdependence also increased. All nations, they don't have all resources. America, it lacks skill, human resources, and we have such human resource in excess supply. So outsourcing of work, it started, and due to the advancement in technology, these kind of working arrangements can be made successful. Okay, so when we conduct our foreign policy in today's time, we need to take into consideration multiple factors, multiple players, consequences on our own nation and on other countries. Okay, so this multi-actor outlook, it has become more prominent in the recent times. Okay, if you come to the theory of international relations, so there are majorly debate between two prominent theories. First were the idealists and other were the realists. So the idealists or the liberals, they said that nation states are always in a state of interdependence, and hence peaceful coexistence is the only way forward. Peaceful coexistence is inevitable. Idealists or the liberals had this opinion, had this perspective, whereas the realists said that no, international politics is driven by power. International politics is driven by power, and conflict and war is inevitable. The world cannot be in a state of constant harmony. These are two perspectives to look at international relations. One is the liberal perspective, which states that nation states, they are interdependent, interconnected, that's why they need to be in a state of peaceful harmony. Whereas the realists say that no, war and conflict is inevitable because nations have their differing interests, and such interests are in conflict with each other at times. Nations have differing interests. At times such interests are contradictory, and due to such contradictory interest, war and conflict is inevitable in international politics. So between these two, there has been a constant debate over outlook we adopt to international relations. Okay, and several models were developed to understand the changes or the changing dynamics in international relations based upon these two outlooks and these perspectives. So one was the billiards ball model. Have you played the game of billiard? So multiple solid balls of different colors are there, and the balls, they make impact on each other. Okay, and after making impact on each other only they make their moves. Okay, so this is the billiards ball model of international politics, which states that here such billiards ball, they signify nation states. If I can draw it for you for ease of understanding, so this is a billiards board. Okay, and when these balls, they make an impact on each other, when they collide with each other, then only their movement takes place. So when we consider the nation state centric outlook to international relation, that is defined by the billiards ball model. There is no other way. Balls in this confined space, in order to interact, must have to collide with each other and make an impact on each other. Now when we come to the multi-actor outlook, it provides a perspective of curve wave model. It says that there is a complex network of interconnectedness, means each entity is connected with the other, and it is a complex network. It is a complex network in which there is no linear impact of one over another. There is no linear impact of so these perspective developed in order to understand the dynamics of the international relations. And why such interconnectedness and in recent times, as the problems have become more complex and global. Earlier nations had to face their own domestic or regional problems. Now the problems have acquired the nature of, problems are more of universal nature, of more global nature. Can you name a few? Good. Climate change. Any other contemporary example? Good. War. Yes. Pandemic. Good. Okay. Food security. So all these problems are not anymore local. All these problems have become more global and universal in nature. That's why this interconnectedness and interdependence has assumed more importance, and nations have no option than to interact more. So E.M. Forster, he had said that only connect. E.M. Forster, his famous quote was, only connect. You have two options, engagement and disengagement. Okay, connect or disconnect, talk or not talk. Politics, in international politics, there is no option of not talking. Yes. E.M. Forster. E.M. Forster. So can you give me an example that in our foreign policy, particularly with respect to India's neighborhood, we have set this policy of not talking or not engaging with some of our neighbor, and at the same time practicing not talking with some another neighbor? Can you give example? We are talking with China or not talking with China? Talking with China. Okay, so with whom we are not talking? Pakistan. So there is no diplomatic relations as of now. Huh? Diplomatic relations in terms of negotiations, talks. Okay. Can you name me any country in the neighborhood in which the government of India has reversed its position? First, it adopted the policy or stance of not talking, and then it reversed its position and started diplomatic good, very good. Okay, so at international level, the choice is to connect or to disconnect, to talk or to not talk. But if you don't talk, you lose the ears and eyes. आपको पता ही नहीं चलेगा हो क्या रहा है. And the government of India was facing this problem in Afghanistan after the Taliban takeover. What happened? So embassies were shut down. All embassy personnel were evacuated. All diplomats were evacuated out of Afghanistan, and India was left out of the dialogue process in Afghanistan. So we had no one of our own who could hear, who could see what was happening there on the ground. So disconnection with the Taliban regime, the policy which India adopted in the first Taliban regime in 1996 to 2001. So India had no diplomatic connections with Taliban regime. But right now we have reopened our embassy in Kabul. Okay. So there is no option to not talk. But there are circumstances also in which not talking or boycotting any nation is considered as a diplomatic measure to put tactical pressure. है ना, समझ में आ रहा है बात, है ना. So this is the conceptual framework in which you have to proceed with this subject. ठीक है. तो आपने नोट्स लिखा है कि मैं आपको अलग से नोट्स डिक्टेट करूं? डिक्टेट करें या फिर कि जो डिस्कशन होता है उस समय आप इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स को लिखते जाएंगे? डिक्टेट करें? इट मे टेक योर टाइम. PDF or something? अच्छा. So would you like to take down notes or we shall focus on more discussing something and clarifying the concepts? हाँ? अच्छा, तो आप जो इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स हैं उसको लिखते जाइए, है ना. जहां पे उसको डिटेल में लिखना होगा हम उसको अलग से लिखवा देंगे, है ना. ठीक है. तो आप एक स्टार्टिंग एक इनिशियल नोट कर लीजिए. इंटरनेशनल रिलेशन हेडिंग देके लिखिए. You provide a heading of international relations. International relations. It is the discipline of. It is the discipline which studies the relations among. It is the discipline or subject. It is the discipline which studies the relation among nation states studies the relations among nation states, full stop. It is about management of. It is about management of conflict and cooperation. It is about management of conflict and cooperation as nations have competing needs and opposing interests. As nations have competing needs means their needs compete with each other. Competing needs and opposing interests. Below that you write, the term international relations was coined by. The term international relations was coined by. The term international relations was coined by Jeremy Bentham. Jeremy Bentham in bracket, an UK philosopher, a philosopher from United Kingdom, UK, United Kingdom. UK. Jeremy Bentham in bracket and UK philosopher. उसके नीचे लिखिए international relations are essential. International relations are essential as issues faced by the nations are international relations are essential as issues faced by the nations are international in character issues faced by the nations are international in character and nations have limited resources and nations have limited resources and capabilities. Nations have limited resources and capabilities to handle them. Limited resources and capabilities to handle them. उसके आगे लिखिए to understand the world. Next point, to understand the world, to understand the dynamic world, we require a paradigm or framework. We require a paradigm. We require a paradigm or framework. We require a paradigm or framework to understand the dynamic world. We require a paradigm or framework to study the relation among nation states. To study the relations among nation states. To study the relation among nation states. उसके नीचे ही लिख लीजिए पॉइंट देके a nation state centric outlook leads to billiard ball model approach to international politics. Billiard ball model approach to international politics. Below that, you can make a diagram for your understanding, where in a confined space there are solid balls. So this is the billiard ball model. Next point, after 1990s, with the emergence of trends of globalization, after 1990s, with the emergence of trends of TRENDS, trends of globalization, interconnectedness and interdependence among nation states increased. Interconnectedness and interdependence among nation states increased. INCREASED, increased. उसके नीचे सब पॉइंट में लिखिए, अगर आप ये पॉइंट लिख रहे हैं इसके नीचे सब पॉइंट में more number of players more number of players gained influence, more number of players gained influence in global decision making, more number of players gained influence in global decision making other than the nation states. More number of players gained influence in global decision making other than the nation states. For example, transnational corporations, TNCs, transnational corporations, comma, NGOs, transnational corporations, comma, NGOs, comma, religious bodies, corporate groups, religious bodies, corporate groups, etc. It led to, उसके नीचे के पॉइंट में लिखिए, it led to, LED led, it led to a multi-actor approach, it led to a multi-actor approach to international politics, it led to a multi-actor approach to international politics with increased interdependence in bracket you can write cobweb model, cobweb model. So this was the cobweb model in which nations were interconnected and it was a complex set of interactions among multiple actors. So in the present perspective, can you say that the importance of nation states has been eliminated? No. Why? If other actors or players have become so much prominent, significant or influential in world politics, so can you say that the importance of nation states has become minimized or been eliminated? Why? What differentiates between other actors and the nation state? They are chosen by the people. Okay. So being chosen by the people, it gives them what sort of authority? People's authority. And what is people's authority? Sovereignty. Okay. So whether it be transnational corporations or NGOs or any body or group, they don't have sovereignty. They are not sovereign bodies. They are not sovereign entities. Only nation states have sovereignty. So this differentiates between a nation state and other actors on the global stage. Fine. That's why, irrespective of all the significance and influence these other players exercise, the role of nation state can never be eliminated or minimized or reduced. Why? Because the nation states, they can enforce their decisions. Can other players enforce their decisions? No. So governments, they make laws and policies and guidelines with respect to anything, and all other stakeholders have to follow such law. कोई एनजीओ तो कोई कानून नहीं बना सकता ना, केवल सरकार ही बना सकती है. That's why. Yes. They influence decision making, but the ultimate say is with the government, with the nation state. Okay. That's why, irrespective of an interconnected and interdependent global politics, the role of nation states cannot be eliminated or minimized. They have the primary role in international politics. ठीक है. उसके आगे आप लिख लीजिए हेडिंग देके नेशन स्टेट, क्योंकि नेशन स्टेट के बारे में बार बार चर्चा आ रही है. नेशन स्टेट का हेडिंग देके लिखिए. हाँ. So what is the difference between state as a political entity and state एज द यूनिट इन एनी फेडरल सिस्टम. अब जैसे इंडिया में हम बोलते हैं ना सेंटर एंड स्टेट्स, है ना, तो व्हाट इज डिफरेंस बिटवीन दिस स्टेट एंड दैट स्टेट, इसको समझना बहुत जरूरी है. बिकॉज इन आवर कन्वर्सेशंस द टर्म will be repeated more often. So you must have complete clarity, crystal clarity about what means a state when we talk about international politics. अभी हम लोगों ने उस चीज के बारे में बात की कि what qualifies as a state, 4 एलिमेंट्स उसके पास हो, है ना. अगर हम एक फेडरल सिस्टम की बात करें, if we talk about the federal system, center and states they are the part and the whole of a system. Whole is the center and parts are the states. So all states they make an organic whole which is the center. Okay, so they are different entities in a federal system, but the state also has a government, the center also has a government, and both the governments they exercise people's power. They both have sovereign element in them, है ना. तो state in political sense is an entity, sovereign, power of decision making, it has a predefined territory, it has a permanent population, it has the ability to take its own decisions. And in a federal system, states are the units of an organic whole, constitutes a nation. ये डिफरेंस है एक फेडरल स्टेट में और एक पॉलिटिकल स्टेट में. A political state is different than a federal state. इस चीज को समझ लीजिएगा, है ना. तो when we talk about nation state in international politics, we are essentially talking about the nations, or in loose sense we can say countries. ठीक है, ओके. ये क्लियर है फेडरल स्टेट और पॉलिटिकल स्टेट में डिफरेंस. चलिए उसके आगे लिख लीजिए. नेशन स्टेट का एक हेडिंग दीजिए, नेशन स्टेट. अच्छा ये बताइए कि आर ऑल पॉलिटिकल स्टेट्स अ नेशन, या ऑल नेशंस आर अ पॉलिटिकल स्टेट? हाँ, सो व्हाट इज अ नेशन, व्हाट इज अ स्टेट? राष्ट्र किसे कहते हैं, राज्य किसे कहते हैं? पॉलिटिकल स्टेट आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट. डिफाइंड टेरिटरी और मतलब एक्यूरेट, दोनों के बीच में अंतर बताइए. नेशन इज अ, इधर ध्यान दीजिए, नेशन इज अ कल्चरल कंसेप्ट, नेशन इज अ कल्चरल कंसेप्ट, state is a political concept, and both when combined they form the concept of nation state, which is both a cultural political entity. हाँ बोलिए. आप उसको फेडरल सेंस में मत समझिए, that's why I'm underlining again and again. Federal state is different. India, it has a number of states, fine. So those states, they are constituents of the nation. Combining together they form the country. Okay, but the state here which we are talking about is the political state in which the sovereign powers are vested. Sovereign powers are vested. आप अगर देखेंगे कि एक फेडरल स्टेट के पास भी इस पॉलिटिकल स्टेट के सिमिलर क्वालिटीज हो सकती हैं. You can compare between a federal state and a political state, but they are not the same. Okay, when we say about Indian state means the government of India, the institutions through which Indian people exercise their power. Okay, but when we say the state of Chhattisgarh, it means a defined territory within which people of certain culture, certain group, class, they reside, having some commonality among them, or at least geographical continuity among them. तो पॉलिटिकल स्टेट अलग होता है और फेडरल स्टेट अलग होता है. And when we talk about nation and state, so nation is more about a cultural concept in which people share some sort of culture, some sort of common ideas. पॉलिटिकल स्टेट में वो नहीं भी हो सकता है, पर कल्चरल नेशन में वो होता है, नहीं तो नेशनहुड का कंसेप्ट ही नहीं होगा. And when both these concepts come together, they form a cultural political concept, which is a concrete concept of a nation. ठीक है, तो अभी के आप कोई एक ऐसा पॉलिटिकल एंटिटी इमेजिन कर सकते हैं जिसके लोगों में आपस में दे डोंट एडहियर टू कॉमन प्रिंसिपल्स? कैन पीपल कम टुगेदर डिस्पाइट हैविंग different founding principles? Is it possible? Can such a coming together of people will be peaceful or stable? It is not possible. Okay, so people must have a common adherence to some principles. अगर हम भारत की बात करें तो यहाँ पे people of different political ideologies are there, अलग अलग राजनीतिक विचारधारा के लोग हैं, है ना, लेकिन हम सब लोकतंत्र में आस्था रखते हैं. वी ऑल आर कमिटेड टू डेमोक्रेटिक वैल्यूज. इसमें तो कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. अगर इफ सम ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस इफ दे चूज टू बी वायलेंट, so they are punished under law, they are considered outlaws, they are considered such organizations or individuals who are not committed to democratic values, rule of law, है ना. So nation is more a cultural concept, state is more a political concept, and when nation state it comes together it forms a concrete state. ओके, तो नेशन स्टेट का एक हेडिंग दे दीजिए, उसके नीचे लिखिए स्टेट इज अ पॉलिटिकल एंटिटी. स्टेट इज अ पॉलिटिकल एंटिटी with sovereign jurisdiction. State is a political entity with sovereign jurisdiction. Sovereign jurisdiction. State is a political entity with sovereign jurisdiction. पॉलिटी की क्लास आप लोग की हो गई है? हो चुकी है सभी की? नहीं हुई है? ओके, so please try to clarify the meaning of those terms. Have no hesitation in asking. Okay, have no hesitation in asking or clarifying the meaning of terms. So sovereign jurisdiction, it means, jurisdiction means what? The area of authority, the area over which any entity exercises its authority is called jurisdiction. अधिकार क्षेत्र बोलते हैं इसको हिंदी में, ठीक है, या क्षेत्राधिकार, ठीक है. Sovereign means the entity which exercises unrestricted power in theory. In practice there will be no ultimate sovereign, but in theory it exercises unlimited power, कुछ भी कर सकता है. So Chanakya also held the view that ruler can do anything according to his wish, but even Chanakya had to concede that the ruler must do what is prescribed in the Shastras, in the religious scriptures. He can't go beyond the moral dictums of the scriptures. So that is again a restriction. Okay, so there can be no ultimate sovereign. So sovereign jurisdiction within a defined territory. A state is a political entity, sovereign jurisdiction within a defined territory. Within a defined territory. उसके नीचे लिखिए सब पॉइंट में, sovereignty means supreme, and sovereignty means supreme and unquestionable authority. Supreme and unquestionable authority. सुप्रीम एंड अनक्वेश्चनेबल अथॉरिटी. उसी में आप बाइफरकेट करके लिख दीजिए इंटरनल एंड एक्सटर्नल. इंटरनल एंड एक्सटर्नल, और इंटरनल के नीचे लिख लीजिए पावर और एबिलिटी टू कंडक्ट, पावर और कैपेबिलिटी टू कंडक्ट डोमेस्टिक अफेयर्स. पावर और कैपेबिलिटी टू कंडक्ट डोमेस्टिक अफेयर्स. और एक्सटर्नल में लिखिए कैपेसिटी टू एक्ट capacity to act independently and autonomously. Capacity to act independently and autonomously. Autonomously. Autonomously on world stage. On world stage. On world stage. So can you give an example in recent times where India has exercised strategic autonomy? Good. Yes. आप कोई और बोल रहे हैं बताइए के मामले पे है ना. So India in conduct of its foreign relation, the underlying broader principle is to adopt a strategic autonomy. To be autonomous in our strategic decisions, we should not be influenced or pressurized by other actors or nations. Okay, so external sovereignty demands that the nation state should be capable enough to take independent and autonomous decisions for its own national interest. ठीक है, तो ये हो गया sovereignty. और उसके नीचे लिख लीजिए कि इट इज अ डायनेमिक कंसेप्ट. सॉवरेनिटी में ही आगे इट इज अ डायनेमिक कंसेप्ट. हाउ इट इज अ डायनेमिक कंसेप्ट? कैन यू हेल्प मी? सॉवरेनिटी मतलब अनरिस्ट्रिक्टेड पावर टू डू एनीथिंग. सो दैट इज द पॉलिटिकल कंसेप्ट ऑफ सॉवरेनिटी. ओके, एक्सरसाइज ऑफ unrestricted power by the political entity, by the sovereign. So is it constant or is it dynamic? How it is dynamic? Dynamic means which changes. So do you think the concept of sovereignty changes? How? Okay. Okay, so there may be factors that influence sovereignty, but in itself is the concept dynamic or a static term? How? Good, but that again is a pressure on the sovereign to act in accordance to the people's will. Fine? So those are the restrictions to sovereignty. Have you heard terms like food security, energy security, being a sovereign in terms of food, fuel, energy, technology? Okay, so as the time is progressing, as the society is changing, as the technology is rapidly advancing, in the same manner the concept of sovereignty is also changing. A nation state cannot be absolute sovereign. You can be a sovereign in context of food. You can take decisions with respect to food policies without any restrictions. Okay, a nation can be self-sufficient, so much resourceful with respect to food. It can't be a sovereign with respect to fuel, with respect to energy, with respect to technology. So the concept, so as these new ideas, as these new resources develop and emerge, in the same manner the concept of sovereignty also changes, and the exercise of sovereignty also changes. So sovereignty is a dynamic concept, it is not a static idea. Okay, usko likh lijiye. Sovereignty is a dynamic concept. Sovereignty is a dynamic concept which in recent times also includes also includes economic sovereignty, vaccine sovereignty, fuel sovereignty, etc. Which in recent times also includes economic sovereignty, vaccine sovereignty, fuel sovereignty, etc. Fuel, ठीक है. हाँ, types of sovereignty. So in which areas any political entity can exercise its sovereign power? Let in case the pandemic and its control. So vaccine was considered the most effective way to control the pandemic. So Could the government of India take all decisions with respect to its vaccine policy unrestricted, in an unrestricted manner? No. So were we a sovereign in terms of vaccines? Was there any nation which was a sovereign in terms of its vaccine policy? So there was pressure from the WHO, there was pressure from the private companies which were manufacturing such vaccines, and there was pressure from the people also. Okay, so different norms of sovereignty are developed as the situations on the world stage change. Likewise, as you talked about the context of fuel, in Russia-Ukraine war, there was a lot of pressure on the Indian government to stop buying Russian oil. Okay, but we exercised strategic autonomy and we took our own decisions in interest of our own fuel sovereignty. Okay, so it is a dynamic concept in terms of as new ideas, new resources and their interplay, it emerges on the global stage, the concept of sovereignty also changes. So this dynamism is an essential feature of sovereignty. It is not a static concept. It is not the mere exercise of political power, but an exercise of political power among interplay of various factors on the global इंटरनेशनल स्टेज. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट लिखिए. अच्छा, उसमें है देयर आर मोर टाइप्स ऑफ सॉवरेनिटी. लाइक एक तो हो गया कि जो नेशन स्टेट है वो इंडिविजुअल सॉवरेन है. देयर इज आइडिया लाइक पूल्ड सॉवरेनिटी. पूल, एज यू डू कार पुलिंग, सो पूल्ड सॉवरेनिटी. So what is pooled sovereignty? फॉरेन एक्सचेंज, थोड़ा सा बोलिए जोर से. हाँ हाँ, पुल नहीं, पूल. पूल जैसे हम रिसोर्स पुलिंग करते हैं ना, तो क्या करते हैं रिसोर्स पुलिंग में? वी हैव लिमिटेड रिसोर्सेस एंड वी पूल और कंबाइन टुगेदर ऑल आवर रिसोर्सेस टू मेक सम मेजर टास्क, टू कंप्लीट सम मेजर टास्क और सम मेजर ऑब्जेक्टिव और गोल. तो पूल्ड सॉवरेनिटी इज a new concept of sovereignty in which the sovereign is not alone, or the sovereign power is not exercised by a single political entity but a number of actors. For example, regional groupings, international organizations, है ना. मान लीजिए कि अभी जैसे किसी देश में ह्यूमैनिटेरियन डिजास्टर हो जाए, कोई नेचुरल डिजास्टर हो जाए, तो वैसे में क्या करते हैं कि सभी देश मिलके अपने पावर को एक्सरसाइज करते हैं. आप अगर नाटो का एग्जांपल लें, सो लेट्स टेक द एग्जांपल ऑफ नाटो. उसमें क्या है कि अटैक ऑन एनी वन मेंबर इज कंसीडर्ड टू बी एन अटैक ऑन द एंटायर ग्रुपिंग. सो दैट्स अ नोशन ऑफ पूल्ड सॉवरेनिटी, एंड हेंस वी कैन सी दैट द कंसेप्ट ऑफ सॉवरेनिटी इज मच डायनेमिक एज एंड व्हेन द सिचुएशन एट द ग्लोबल स्टेज चेंजेस. ठीक है, तो पूल्ड सॉवरेनिटी समझ गए. तो कई तरीके का है, and we are discussing this only to provide you a framework that as and when these terms come up while our discussion, as we deal with the syllabus, तो आपको दिक्कत ना हो, है ना. आगे थोड़ा देख लीजिए, आगे लिखिए. मॉन्टेवीडियो कन्वेंशन 1933. मॉन्टेवीडियो कन्वेंशन 1933. Montevideo Convention 1933 provided for qualifying properties of a state. Provided for qualifying properties of a state. For qualifying properties of a state. First one, defined territory. First one, defined territory. Defined territory. Second one, permanent population. Permanent population. Third, effective government. Third, effective government. Fourth, capacity to enter into relations with other states. Third was effective government, and fourth, capacity to enter into relations with other states. capacity to enter into relations with other states. So that is nothing but a type of sovereignty. Okay, उसके आगे लिखिए, इंडियन पॉलिटिकल थिंकर चाणक्य, इंडियन पॉलिटिकल थिंकर चाणक्य और कौटिल्य कंसीडर्ड मित्र और अलाइज, कंसीडर्ड मित्र और allies as a component of the state, mitra or allies as one of the seven components, as one of the seven components, as one of the seven components of the state. और बाकी 6 भी अगर आप लिखना चाहें तो आप लिख सकते हैं, अदर कंपोनेंट्स करके लिख लीजिए। आपने उस टाइम नोट किया था, सभी ने किया था, आपने लिख लिया है ना? हाँ, ठीक है, ओके, तो आपने वो लिख लिया है, ठीक है। लिखिए नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, ट्रीटी ऑफ वेस्टफैलिया, ट्रीटी ऑफ वेस्टफैलिया 1648, ट्रीटी ऑफ वेस्टफैलिया, Treaty of Westphalia 1648 is considered to be the beginning of modern international politics. Treaty of Westphalia 1648 is considered to be the beginning of modern international politics. Modern international politics, considered to be the beginning of मॉडर्न इंटरनेशनल पॉलिटिक्स। उसके नीचे सब पॉइंट में लिखिएगा, इट एंडेड 30 years वॉर, इट एंडेड 30 years वॉर अक्रॉस सेंट्रल यूरोप, इट एंडेड 30 years वॉर अक्रॉस सेंट्रल यूरोप and transformed the medieval Europe into, and transformed the medieval Europe into modern state systems, and transformed the medieval Europe into modern state systems. modern state systems. उसी के नीचे सब पॉइंट में लिखिए, the Westphalian system, the Westphalian system holds two key principles. The Westphalian system holds two key principles. First, states have sovereign jurisdiction. Westphalian system holds two key principles. First, states have sovereign jurisdiction. States have sovereign jurisdiction. Second, states accept sovereign independence of others. Second, states accept ACCEPT, states accept sovereign independence of others. States accept sovereign independence of others. So these were the two principles on which the Westphalian system was based. So as few of you asked for a break at 6:20, so let's have a break and we will assemble after 10 minutes. Okay, fine.